Thousands of elves lay slaughtered in the streets. The Iorwerth clan is victorious. What will happen to Tirunren now? The grinds, the quests. There is so much to do in Runescape, so much to explore. Today we will be exploring the rich history of Runescape. If you really want to understand the game you are playing, you must know its history. Walking in the deep forest of Isafdar, you can see giant mountains which seem impossible to cross. These enormous mountains are part of a mountain range called the Galapros Mountains. These mountains block the way into Tirunren, and just a few know how to cross it. That's why since Guthix created this forest back in the First Age, the forest hasn't changed much. The elves that live in these lands have found two ways to cross the Arundar. Presumably, the elves found a pass deep under the mountain of Arundar in the Second Age, which they could use to travel to the kingdom of Kendarin. This pass was used by the ancient elves as a trading route, but this pass fell out of use since the second Arundar pass was created. This pass brought the elves over the mountain instead of under it, and was presumably created by the Elven Kendarin clan to colonize further east. But this didn't go smoothly. The elves in Tirunren lived peacefully with each other until the Kendarin clan went over the Arundar mountains and built settlements there. Being the strongest military clan of the elves, they had rivals that quickly wanted the position that the Kendarin clan filled before. So when they left, another clan called the Iorwerth clan betrayed the other clans and claimed the city of Aeneas, which was the capital of Tirunren at the time. This led to a battle called the Great Divide in the year 1930 of the Fourth Age. To get a better understanding of what actually happened during the Great Divide, we are going to be reading a book about this time period. The Great Divide is a book which goes on to tell of a time when the underground pass was found to be blocked off, and after sending scouts to try to find out what was going on, the elves of the eastern regions found that during their absence, Aeneas had fallen into a gruesome, bloody civil war, with Lord Iorwerth seizing control of much of the city. I should start by telling you about some events that led up to the Great Divide. For almost 2 millennia, we have lived in the Eastern Realm. Then in the year 1030, we lost all contact with our people on the other side of Arundar. We found that the route over the mountains was impassable, and our incantations were unable to penetrate a wall of static that has now surrounded our homeland. An emergency council was called, which I was lucky enough to take part in. We decided that before any major action could be taken, we needed to know what happened. Many ways to re-enter Tirunren were discussed. It was then that I reminded the council of an old cave system that was linked up to the Well of Voyage, an ancient device made by our forefathers to give us access to the deep caves. Though why anyone would go to that godforsaken place, I have no idea. Soon it was decided to send 5 members of the Kendarin clan to the Well of Voyage to recover any information that could tell us what was happening. We chose to reconvene upon their return. After a few weeks, Ardru returned, the only one of the 5 scouts that made it back. A council was called to listen to his news. He told us of the chaos he had seen, elves killing elves in the streets of Aeneas and seizing of the Tower of Voices by the Iorwerth clan. Their forces denying access to all those not of their bloodline. Hearing all this sparked a debate that continued for days. Many plans were put forward of how we should deal with the problems back home. Ideas ranging from the assassination of Lord Iorwerth to just leaving the western elves to kill each other were suggested. It was at this suggestion that the backstory quoted the Serdri, telling all those present that only together as the 8 clans can we hope to survive in this hostile new world. He then pledged Clan Kendarin to stop this madness that had befallen Aeneas, and so started the Backstorian campaign. The Serdri was the holy writing of Siren. It's a sort of Bible. After 3 days of preparation, the Kenderin clan was ready to move. I also chose to join the Kenderin forces to keep record of what transpired. So it was that we made our way to the entrance of the cave system that eventually led to the werewolf voyage. Traveling in such places is never easy, and this was no exception. To transport the whole army and our supplies through the cave system took us close to a week. It was not until... The last few pages of this book are missing, but we do know what happened after they got through the pass. It's an event called Siege of Aeneas. This siege started 5 years after the Great Defy began. But before we're going to talk about this siege, we will shift the attention away from Tywin and are going to focus it on the Elven king Baxtorian. Some may recognize this name from the waterfall quest, or the location called the Baxtorian Falls, that lay just south of the barbarian outpost. The clan Kendarn that went over the mountain Arandar had begun to settle in Kenderin. The Elven king Baxtorian and his forces settled at the foot of the Baxtorian Falls, which are now named after him, and established an Elven-led kingdom. The Iorwerth clan stayed behind and vowed to protect Tywin, Aeneas, and the rest of the clans when the Kendarn clan was away. But a few years after they left, the Iorwerth clan took control of the Tower of Voices, which lay in the heart of the city, and began to launch an attack on every clan in the city. Being the strongest military clan after the clan Kendarn, the other clans stood no chance. After taking control of the city, they blocked access to the Arandar Pass between Tyrannwyn and the other eastern lands and broke all contact with the eastern Elven kingdom, which began the Great Divide. The 6 elders of the other clans who remained in the city were captured and imprisoned by Iorwerth. Then, as we can read in the book, King Baxtorian sent his forces to get the city back. This is when the event called Siege of Aeneas began. The Baxtorian forces and the forces of the other clans rushed back to Isafdar to liberate the city and began a 5-year campaign to get the city back into the control of all the 8 Elven clans. This began in the year 1930 of the 4th Age. The siege on Aeneas failed, however, and King Baxtorian's forces were almost annihilated. Lord Iorwerth has summoned the power of the Dark Lord to strengthen him, easily defeating Baxtorian Elven forces. Baxtorian was unable to penetrate the well-fortified city walls and defeat Lord Iorwerth's army. Meanwhile, Baxtorian's kingdom in the eastern lands fell into ruin, with his wife Queen Glariel captured by the enemy. Baxtorian could not continue fighting, and the Baxtorian campaign ended in the year 1935 of the 4th Age. The rebel forces retreated to a small village called Lefia and stayed there. King Tyrus, the ruler of West Ardown, was asked by the rebel forces to aid them in retaking Aeneas. Somehow King Tyrus agreed and left his kingdom behind to fight with the rebel elves. Tyrus ruled West Ardown for some time, not immensely popular, but accepted nonetheless. The city grew under his rule, expanding further west to the nearly impassable Arandar mountain range. As the city expanded west, a section of a small mountain on Arandar's edge was opened to make way for construction. This digging, however, uncovered the underground pass, an ancient elven tunnel system that had once connected the lands of Kenderin with the realm of the elves, Tyrannwyn. Tyrus found the prospect of exploring Tyrannwyn impossible to resist. Taking a highly trained division of the Ardown army, King Tyrus traveled through the underground pass, which, at the time, was largely abandoned. With Tyrus gone though, West Ardown began to weaken, even as its eastern neighbor grew in wealth and political influence. West Ardown found itself led by Tyrus's inexperienced assistants. Public morale plummeted, and King Tyrus quickly became unpopular. Tyrus, after spending some time in Tyrannwyn, temporarily returned to West Ardown, with his surviving men to recruit new soldiers and resupply. His time spent in West Ardown was brief though, and before long he returned to Tirannwn. Tyrus, unaware of what was happening in his city, continued to explore Tirannwn, eventually making it as far as the Western Sea. His highly trained group of Tyrus guards, though increasingly few, kept him safe from the dangers of the Elven forest. Lord Iorwerth, seeing King Tyrus as a foreign invader and a potential meddler in his plan, declared him a rogue attempting to conquer Aeneas and an enemy of the Iorwerth clan. The two soon erupted in armed conflict, though the elves' knowledge of their forest put Tyrus and his men at a massive disadvantage. Despite this, Tyrus eventually managed to escape from Iorwerth, establishing a hidden camp in the secluded forests of southern western Isafdar. In constant fear, Tyrus' men knew that before long, the clan would find them and slaughter them. In the Regicide quest, you killed King Tyrus with explosives, because you were told that he was evil by King Lafas of East Ardown. The last person which we are going to talk about in this episode is the evil ruler Lord Iorwerth himself. Lord Iorwerth is the leader of the Iorwerth clan of the elves and is obsessed with summoning his Dark Lord. He has been alive for at least a few thousand years because his name is already mentioned back in the beginning of the 4th Age. Lord Iorwerth took over the city of Aeneas by force, murdering anyone that wasn't part of their bloodline. It is believed that Lord Iorwerth broke one of the 9 seals of the Grand Library made by Siren the Elven goddess herself. The 9 seals were used to protect the vast knowledge kept there from reaching the hands of humans. The library is located underneath the elven city of Aeneas, which is currently inaccessible. However, the reason for his actions is unknown. The next episode, we will be diving into the history behind Glariel's tomb and the treasure of Baxtorian. Have a great day.